I don't think you can get away from the hard work. And I think the sooner you accept the hard work, the easier it actually becomes. The monotony of doing the same thing day in and day out, that's where all the magic really is. I found people that were doing what I wanted to do. That was key to me being able to then bounce back.
Welcome to episode 9 of Mike Drop. Today, I am with Robert Watkins out of California. Robert, how are you?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you for having me, Mike.
So, Robert, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in real estate?
Approaching 20 years, actually, this month. So I feel like I'm still getting started, but 20 years.
So what'd you do? Start when you were 7?
Something like that. I started when I was 20. Right out of college or right as I started college, I decided to get my license, and it's been an interesting journey.
What made you want to get into real estate?
It's my family. My family's always been in business. Several of those family members in business work in real estate in different aspects. And I had a chance to really shadow them from a very early age and just was always intrigued, liked the idea of putting deals together and things like that. And so when it came time to really kind of decide what I wanted to do in terms of life, I chose real estate.
Gotcha.
Sales wasn't my first choice, but I chose real estate.
So what was your first year like? Because it's always interesting to see what the first year of a real estate agent looks like. And so many people have misconceptions that you get into real estate and boom, you make $1 million.
Yeah, I wish. So my first year was 10 deals. I was fortunate, I will say, to kind of happen upon for sale by owners and expireds kind of right out the gate. And that was a blessing. And I didn't have a ton of apprehension about getting on the phones, especially once I got comfortable with, kind of what to say. And so, yeah, it worked out, I suppose, for the first year.
Gotcha. Did you struggle with the rejection and the repetitious boredom of kind of doing the same thing? Because I think so many people forget that to be a successful real estate agent, it requires you to master repetitious boredom, and it requires you to master the fact that you're going to get lots of rejection. So how was that for you your first year?
You know what? I was not prepared for it, right? I mean, just being honest, I wasn't prepared for the rejection. I wasn't prepared for the repetitious boredom. Being in sales most of my life, I feel like I developed a thick skin, but this was a whole nother level, right? Of doing it day in and day out. And then just the monotony of doing the same thing day in and day out. But as I learned, that's where all the magic really is in being able to do that. And I've not mastered it, if I'm being honest, but that's where people like yourself are helping me get there.
Yeah, no, I think so many people don't understand the hardest part, at least for me coming up, was the repetitious boredom. People don't understand that you literally are on the phone for 5, 6, 7 hours a day, talking to the same kind of people, saying basically the same thing, hearing the same objection. So it's like literally living Groundhog Day every single day. So what did you do your first year or two to try to get past that? Because I think that's the part that I think most real estate agents at the beginning, they struggle with, just the monotony of doing the same thing, hearing the same thing. So what kind of things were you doing to try to get past that?
That's a great question. And if I'm being completely transparent, I don't know that I really thought about it in those terms, right? I wish I had. But at that time, especially coming in, new agent, and doing some things in the office that were kind of contrary to what the big wigs in the office were doing. I was told that that's probably not the best way to do things. And so I just followed, their advice because they seemed to be successful. So that kind of detoured me a tad. And I found my way back eventually, but that probably cost me at least a couple of years of trying to follow what maybe they were instructing me to do, not seeing the results that I wanted, and then getting back to what I saw was working in the beginning.
No, absolutely. So obviously being in the business 20 years, I mean, was it straight up or did you have ups and downs like most people?
Oh, I had some ups and then steeper downs and then really high ups and then some steeper downs, right? And, man, I count it all joy, man, because really, it's been a learning process. And that's what everyone that I respect in this business, like yourself, has shared with me, that it's very much that, right? Because it's not only a journey of business, it's not only a journey of learning the business, but it's really a journey of learning yourself. And you're learning who you are through this process, in what I see as an effort to develop yourself into the best version of yourself.
Yeah. So what kind of things were you able to do? Because I think so many agents don't understand that getting past the ups and the downs. Like I always tell people, in real estate, to be successful, you need to have breakdowns so that you can have breakthroughs. There's really never been a breakthrough without first having a breakdown. So what were you able to do in your breakdowns so that you could have your breakthroughs as you went through the 20 years of ups and downs? Because,
Yeah.
not people are able to withstand the ups and the downs of real estate.
Again, a great question. So one of the things that that I think I did, well, is that in those downs, I found people that were doing what I wanted to do, and I like clung to them. Like I wouldn't let them go, right? Right? I wouldn't let them go, right? And so that was key to me being able to then bounce back. And during that time, it helped me to also create a new identity for myself in the business, so that I could see myself differently than maybe I'd seen myself in the past. And but yeah, finding mentorship, finding people that were doing what I wanted to do, and then finding others at my level that wanted to grow, and creating some accountability. That's absolutely what helped me to really get out of those holes and really skyrocket my business.
Yeah. I mean, I think the hardest part for a lot of people as they come through the process is giving up who you are so that you can become the person that you're capable of being. How hard was it for you as you get mentors to let go of the parts that you used to have so that you can have the things that you want, which is probably the hardest part. I have so many people that says, well, if I do this, I'm giving up myself. But it's like, if you have to give up your broke version to get your rich version.
Right.
So tell me about that for you.
So, Mike, the word that comes to mind, and you pretty much said it, was surrender, right? And I remember vividly, it was 2015 after a particularly long drought. I was going through some things personally, and I found some new mentorship and some accountability. And long story short, I made the decision to stop trying to do it my way, because my way was not working, right? I think I made maybe 110, 115,000, at my best during that time. And I said, I'm doing this wrong. Like, I know I have it in me, but my ego, my pride, my whatever is preventing me from being the best version of myself. So stop. And I gave up that version of myself. I surrendered to whatever my coaches, mentors, accountability said to do. I did it. And it was like overnight. When I got out of my own way, it was like magic happened.
So is there a moment that it happened for you, or is it just something that gradually happened? I mean, I know for me, 2006, all my deals fall out. I think I'd made like $60,000 from January to like July 17th. All my deals fall apart. I snap. I say not again. And then between July 18th and the end of the year, I made 505. And that was like my first true breakthrough, and really not even a breakthrough. It was me surrendering, saying that I'm going to surrender who I am right now so that I can become the person that I'm capable of being. So was it a moment for you where you just surrendered and you say, look, I give up, you win? Or was it something that gradually happened? Because, for a lot of people, there's a moment that happens where it changes.
You know what? It was like that, right? I think it was probably gradual getting up to that moment, but once the decision was made and I was like, okay, I surrender. I remember getting to my new company that I was joining at that time, and it was like February, March, and within about a 45-day period, I took 7 listings, which I had never done before. I could get on the phone and take listings. Like I said, I didn't have a problem with that, but the consistency, I did it every single day. And I took 7 listings, I believe it was, in 45 days.
Wow. So fast forward to today, when you look at the real estate market today in 2024, what do you think are probably the 2 to 3 challenges that you see in the marketplace, not just for you, but for just agents in general?
2 to 3 challenges. I think probably the biggest challenge is mindset, right? I think that if you're like most agents, you are always looking for the easiest way to get to your goal. And I think when you look for the easiest way, when you're looking for the easiest way, there are so many shiny objects along that path that take you off of the tried and true, kind of approach that has been proven to work, forever. And so I think, mindset around the business and always looking for the easiest route. There's nothing wrong with wanting easy, but I don't think you can get away from the hard work. And I think the sooner you accept the hard work, which is conversations you and I have had, the sooner you accept the hard work, the easier it actually becomes.
No, absolutely. Yeah. It's funny you say mindset because, people don't understand. It's like without happiness and without health, it doesn't matter what you've accumulated in your life. You could be a millionaire, you could have everything you want, but if you don't have those 2 things, you don't have a life. So right. Outside of mindset, what do you think are the 2 other challenges that agents face?
I think there is a lack of skill set for agents, especially newer agents. And I don't think that that is spoken to or spoken about enough. And then just a lack of dedication to the art, to the skill, to the business. I think you have a lot of people getting in the business because it's easy to get a license, and then your family wants to support you. So you do some deals, and then all of a sudden you feel like, oh, well, I've mastered this real estate thing. And the numbers would suggest otherwise when you look at, the statistics. So I think a lack of dedication to mastering your business, your craft, and then a lack of skill set.
Yeah, I remember one of my mentors, Steve Powers, always said, "You are your numbers." He got that from Bill Belichick. It's like if you only take 2 listings, it doesn't matter how good you are the number. Like when you look up at the scoreboard, it doesn't say 10 listings taken, it says 2. And I think so many people go off of how skilled they think they are, but at the end of the day, it's also like, what are you actually doing now? And I think skill set is probably something that's a lost art because for the last 4 or 5 years, which is where probably 60 to 70% of the agents right now have come into the business, you haven't had to have any skills. You listed the property sold itself. Buyers came to you, and not only were they willing to buy a house with you, they were willing to pay $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 more. So you didn't really have to do anything. Right now, I mean, the market that I'm seeing is that I haven't seen a market like this since probably 2012. And the fact that homes are staying on the market longer, you're having to get price reductions, even if you price right. I mean, you really have to have the skills and the processes to sell real estate in high volume. So how have you personally adapted to this year, having the last 4 or 5 years basically just be layups?
Yeah. Returning to fundamentals, right? Returning to fundamentals. Focusing on the 80-20, right? What's the 20% that's going to really move the needle? And in our business, in my opinion, that is talking to a lot of people and then knowing how to convert at the highest level. Talking to a lot of people, you're going to get more opportunities, and the better your conversion, the better, the better the result, right? Mm-hmm. So back to role playing and practice, a lot. If I don't have anything else to do, if I've made all my calls or, I don't have any appointments, practice. Like, and forgive me, I don't want to slaughter the quote, but I think it goes something like, you play at the level of your practice or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I believe that, like, the better I am at being able to dialogue with another person and bring them from their position to mine, I win no matter how many contacts I'm making. The better I'm at that skill. Mm-hmm. And then the ability to present those 2 things, and you win the game.
Yeah, I think so many people don't understand that, when you're role playing, it's not just about you role playing generic scripts. It's about you writing down every single day the problems that you struggle with, the moments that kind of got you where you fumbled and mumbled, and bringing those moments to the role play, because now you're hearing other people experience your moments, and it gives you a better insight of how to handle those. For me, one of the things that I did coming up is that every time I didn't handle an objection, a question the right way, I would just write it down. And at the end of the day, before I went home, I would write 2 different ways that I could handle that objection, so that the next day I could post that up in my area, so that the next time I heard it, I had something that I could just go off of. Because people don't realize it's like prospecting is like riding a bull. You're always one more question, which means you get to stay on a little bit longer. Each question opens up another series of questions. So how have you evolved your dialogue in the last 12 months?
Yeah, you know what? So in the evolution of my dialogue, and I think it's probably, important to note, like I used to practice a lot more than I had, and I think to your point, over the last 4 or 5 years, right? Because everything really was a layup. And returning to, to those fundamentals, one of the things that I've been really focusing on again is how to position, right? Like how to position a call, how to position a prospect, and how to take them down a road, right? Internalizing the script, because that's important, but really how to dance within the script so that it feels natural, it feels conversational, but I'm still able to lead them to where I want them to go. And it feels like I'm back in grade school because I have fumbled and been messing up. But again, that's where the numbers help. Just keep calling, keep, making the calls, and, and eventually you get back into your rhythm.
Right. And obviously we've been working together, I think, for 6 months or so.
Yeah.
How hard was it to learn, instead of asking one question, to start asking in multiples, where instead of saying, where are you moving? You're saying, are you relocating or staying local, where you're splitting them up? Because so many people ask a question and the person can say no. It's like, where are you going to move? No.
Yeah.
When are you going to move? No. Instead of saying, if you were to move, would you stay local or relocate? See, they can't say no to that. One of the things I try to teach everyone that I work with is to ask questions where people can't say no. So how hard for you was it to learn to start talking in a different way than what you had done, obviously, for the previous 19 years?
Yeah. It was challenging just because it's a different pattern, right? A different language pattern. But I geek out on this stuff, man. I'm a nerd around like communication and effective communication, persuasive communication. So I loved it, and especially the psychology behind it, right? So, so as you started taking me down that road and showing me how to ask questions in that way, man, I loved it, and I now practice it, regularly, trying to find out a better way to ask a question. And then something I've heard you say plenty of times is ask the next, or what's the next best question, or asking a better quality question. So those are the things I'm really focused on right now. Asking a better quality question, and then giving the 2 option question.
Yeah. I mean, people don't understand the difference between a good salesman and the best salesman is the way they ask questions, their ability to ask questions, because questions show that you care. Questions allow you to learn what the prospect is thinking. And when you're asking questions, you're not making statements. One of the most important things that I try to teach agents to do is to stop making statements. If I'm telling you what's happening, it's like I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Whereas if you ask questions, you can get them to tell you. It's so much more powerful when you can ask questions where they can tell you the answer versus us trying to shove the answer down the face. So how hard was that for you to develop that skill? Because it's a unique skill set to stop making statements and to learn to ask questions.
It was challenging, especially kind of coming back to a more skill-based market, right? It was challenging because naturally, when you're speaking to someone you don't know, you want to ramble, right? You want to fill the empty space. Those are all areas of discomfort for most people, right? And so asking questions and then being able to sit in that and wait for the response, it was challenging. But that's where the magic happens, because when they give you that information back, they own that, right? That's not you imposing your opinions on them. They're telling you and empowering you with that information, and it gives you everything you need to move them down the road.
Yeah, I think it's so important that people start identifying their level of discomfort, because when you start to become discomfort in a call, you
Yeah.
do start to ramble, you fumble, you mumble, and everybody's level of discomfort. I would say the difference between me and most people is that I don't have a high level of discomfort. There's not much that somebody can say that I haven't heard 1,000 times, because for most people, when they get to discomfort, they stop asking questions
Yep.
and then they start making statements. It's
Yep.
funny how, like, literally at the moment you get to discomfort, you stopped. Have you noticed that within yourself?
Absolutely. I having that conversation with a role play buddy not too long ago. That is where most people get off the phone. When they get quiet and they have nothing else to say and they don't know what to ask, or they don't want to ask the next question, because asking questions is also confrontational, right?
Okay.
I think the best interviewers that we've seen in, over the course of history, over, media and broadcasting and what have you, they ask the tough questions. And that is very confrontational. And most people don't want to be in that space.
So how
But
do you
again,
feel about confrontation?
generally, I don't mind. Generally, I don't mind. I even, I box, so confrontation isn't necessarily something that I shy away from or have a problem with. But I will say it's different when it's attached to your ego. And sometimes the phones, that level of confrontation can be attached to your ego and sometimes even your self-worth. And so it can be a little different.
Have you struggled with ego in your own career?
Of course. Yeah.
So tell me
Just a little bit. I'm sorry.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh man. Well, look, I mean, let's talk about the first 10 years, right? Being committed to doing things in a certain way, even though I knew that it may not have been the best way, but it was getting me, a certain result. And that result for me and the company that I kept was better than the results I was getting, or everyone else was getting in that circle, right? So my ego was puffed up. I felt good, even though I wasn't getting the results that I wanted, right? So, I mean, threw away the first 10 years of my business just because of my ego. I should have been in coaching. I should have been taking different steps, but I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think ego is probably one of the biggest things that stops people from ever achieving what they want, because people, they overestimate how good they are. Because, in a good market, anybody can be good. I remember, from
Right.
2000 to 2005, I literally thought that I was the world's greatest real estate agent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when 2006 happened, I didn't have the skills to get price reductions. Like, I didn't have certain skill sets, because what people don't realize is that every single market you're in requires a certain skill set. And
Yep.
in 2006 and 7 and 8, as you had foreclosures and all the different things happening in the financial markets, if you didn't have the skill set of fighting for your commission, and you didn't have the skill set of getting price reductions, you didn't have the skill set of just how to negotiate with angry sellers as the banks were lowering the prices every single day. I mean, I watched a lot of the people around me just disappear. So it forced me to be either find the skill and make it, or like a lot of people, they just got out of the business. So I think it's so important that everybody understand that every season in real estate is going to require a different part of you. So when you look at the season of real estate we're in now, what do you think are probably 2 or 3 things that in the next 12 months you need to work on to make sure that your 2025 is dramatically better than your 2024?
Yeah. 2 or 3 things that I need to focus on. I say 1, I need to close more often and more early, right? On my calls. We've had that discussion. You've shared that with me.
What do you think stops you from doing that? Do you think it's skill or discomfort?
It's discomfort.
Okay, I agree.
Let's keep it real. It's discomfort, right? Because you're bringing out that objection very early. And if you're not prepared for that objection, then it's like, oh, well, where do I go, right? So closing often, closing early. I'm still working on the repetitious boredom. Not going to lie. Like that's, that I think once I master that, I think everything else changes.
Let me ask you, when you're in your prospecting, do you listen to music? I mean, what does your environment look like?
It kind of depends. Sometimes I'll have something motivational on in the background. Sometimes I may have different boxing matches that I like, old classic boxing matches on in the office. I'm an anime fan, so sometimes I may have some like Dragon Ball Z, whatever, right? I like to lift weights, so sometimes I'll have something like that on. But anything that helps me to feel productive, I'll try to have on. And then, occasionally I have music on.
Yeah, people don't understand. I got Jay-Z, Biggie, Tupac.
Yeah.
People come to my office and like, who the hell is this guy?
Right.
That music, it just seems to bring out the dog. So it's
yeah, it does.
Music has been something that has always allowed me to prospect longer and just make it more enjoyable, because you have to realize something. If you're going to be on the phone for 5, 6, 7 hours a day, you have to find a way to make it fun. That's why, at my office, I have a place we call the pit, where it's just a bunch of tables, everybody's standing up, everybody's listening to music, and it's a high energy environment, very similar to what you would see like the Wolf of Wall Street, because it's like, to sell in high volume, you have to make sure that while you're prospecting, your energy, your enthusiasm, and more importantly, you're being playful. I think, so many agents, they're too serious when they're on the phone, not realizing that the best salespeople on earth know how to be playful. They know how to tell stories, and you can't do that if you're not in a good state. So what do you do in your own environment to try to keep your mind where it needs to be to close people?
One thing I do, and it's recently, but I've done it in the past as well, is I'll keep my bills in front of me, right? I'll keep the things that I need to take care of in front of me, right? Another thing that I'll do is keep things I want to get accomplished in front of me, right? And it doesn't have to be related to real estate. Like right now, I'm chasing a 10% body fat, right? And there's a correlation between, how I show up in the gym and in my personal life and how I show up in my business life. And so I'll just keep things that keep me inspired in front of me. And so when I show up on the phone, it reminds me, show up as the person that's going to do that extra rep, or the person that's going to go that extra round in the ring, or, whatever.
So let me ask you, obviously a couple months ago, you're probably doing 3 listings a month. Now you're getting closer to 10 or 11. What's been the change?
Showing up every day. The consistency, right? We talk about repetitious boredom, and repetitious boredom is like the, being able to stay in it for a longer enough period of time throughout the day, right? Well, I think the cousin to that, or the sibling to that, is the day-to-day consistency, because I can, be on the phones for 8 hours, one day, but can I show up and do it the next day and the day after? So the consistency of the work is, getting me the results that I want right now.
Yeah. I think consistency is probably one of the most important parts at becoming great at prospecting. I think so many people have these limitations about what time should I call, what day should I call, I shouldn't call on holidays. And I think it was like 2015 or 16. I remember like calling, and I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't call on holidays. So I said, you know what? I am going to call every expired, for sale, builder, and withdrawn every single day for a year. I remember setting an appointment on Christmas morning, being like, I noticed your property came off this expired listing, literally on Christmas, and setting up an appointment. And it really changed my mindset about, when to call, because the truth is, anytime is the best time to call. There's always people out there that are looking to buy and sell. People that'll be mad on Christmas, I promise, they'll be mad on Easter. They're going to be mad on Saturday. They're going to be mad on Monday.
That's who they are.
If they're mad at 7:30 in the morning, I promise they're going to be madder at 8:30, and they'll still be mad at 5 o'clock. So we have to kind of get out of that mindset of when is a good time to call, because truthfully, nice people will be nice and mad people will be mad. How hard was that for you to start distinguishing that fact? Because I think that's a part of real estate that so many agents struggle with, in terms of, oh my God, when should I not call?
That's such a good point, because I wasn't so much hung up on like when's a good time and not a good time, but I absolutely struggled with my preconceived notion sometimes of what was going to be on the other end of that call, right? And what I've learned and what I reminded myself of is that really comes from me. Like that negative expectation comes from within, right? Because like you said, for every person that you call on a Christmas day that, is pissed off that you're calling on a holiday, there's going to be someone else that you call that thinks it's a blessing. And that was like serendipity that you called on that day in their time of need. So, trying to approach every call from a neutral standpoint, right? Not putting any definition on any call, or not trying to go into it with the thought that it's going to be anything. Just have the call, just let the phone ring and take it as it comes.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, the thing that allowed me to do that is my mindset went from stop selling and start serving. If you're calling on Christmas,
100%.
Easter, Thanksgiving, you're calling to serve, you're calling to help, you're calling to aid, you're calling to guide,
Right.
So come from that place. They're not rejecting you, they're rejecting whatever situation that they're in. And I think
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that, because it absolutely does change how you even show up on the call when you're actually calling to serve rather than to see what you can get. When you're actually calling to serve them, like, you even fight harder because you're like, no, listen, I can help you, right? I know what you need. Versus just trying to figure out how you can get the next listing.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember, because the funny thing is we're talking about limitations. I remember, I think it was like 2007. I had this limitation about houses over $1 million. It could be $999, and like literally, I would call, no problem. But if it said $1,000,001, that little extra number on there, it did something to me. And I'll never forget, I was on the phone with this mortgage guy, and I remember he was just like, what do you know about $1 million house? And I remember looking at him I'm looking at the phone, and I'm like, you know what I know? I was like, you know what? Instead of having the appointment at your house, why don't you have it at my house? Because your house is 6,000 square feet. Mine's 8,000 square feet. Your house is on 3 acres. My house is on 8.5 acres.
Right.
So if you want to know what I know about $1 million house, why don't we have the appointment at my house instead of yours, and then you can see what I know. And it's funny that he started laughing, and I ended up getting, that listing. But it was like that day there was like a little breakthrough, like in my mind, that it was just like I am this person. Like, why am I scared about calling this number? Because it is a number. You know what I mean? And honestly, some of the people at 1, 2 million, they're a lot more open to having conversations than people at 3 and 4. You know what I mean? Listings that you take at $1 million, there's far less problems than you see at 4 and 5. It's just, it's a fact. But again, I think one of the things that so many agents struggle with is limitations. It's this mind. This mind is a survival mind. It's always trying to protect us from people that aren't hurting us. And you have to realize, if you don't consciously use your mind, your unconscious mind is a survival mind. The mind to thrive, that is the conscious mind, where you have to choose that. Thriving versus surviving, it's a personal choice that every day you have to condition. So what do you do daily to try to get your mind in a thriving place versus the unconscious surviving?
Yeah. Every morning I start off with some level of prayer, meditation, what have you, right? But I'll start off with just taking a few moments just to clear my mind, like slow it down, right? That's not time to be on the phone, check email, check Instagram, or any of that stuff. It's time to just, be present and in the moment. And then from there, I go to what I call my second home, which is the gym. And I try to get in a really good workout, do something hard, before the day starts. And usually when I come back from there, my mind is clear. And then it's just about jumping into, my first role play session, getting ready for the office, jumping into my first role play session, and then getting to the office and getting to the phones.
So how hard is it for you to juggle your career and your family life? Because obviously, having a family, a daughter, what does that look like?
It's difficult, right? It's difficult. I will say I'm incredibly blessed to have an incredibly supportive wife and incredibly supportive daughters that lend me to, to this business that I love so much. But it's difficult, man. They make a lot of sacrifices for me to be able to do what I love. And so I'm grateful to them for that.
How hard is that for you? To want to be with your family and know that there's certain things that you have to do to take care of them?
It's it's a challenge, man, because the mind plays tricks on you, right? The mind plays tricks on you. You're out there chasing, your dreams, and it's easy for the mind to tell you that you're missing out. And in some respects you may be, right? Like, I absolutely miss opportunities with the kids and with my wife that I would love to be able to participate in, but I also have a vision for the life that I want them to have. And so, that's the sacrifice that I make for them to be able to have the life that I want them to have.
Yeah. I'm coaching a guy now, and I remember on our first call, he was like, I'm a family man. I'm a family man, Mike. I'm a family man. And we're talking, and I remember him saying, I will do anything for my family, anything. And he just kept going on and on as we started working together. It's like, this guy would do anything for his family, but work past 5 o'clock. He would do anything for his family, but work Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah.
Like, he would do anything for his family except what would actually take care of his family. And I remember us having like one of those come to Jesus moments that none of my coaching clients like, where it's like, dude, what the hell are you doing? Like, literally, like, I understand that you're a family man, but part of being a family man is to take care of your family.
Right.
See, I've always believed that, for me personally, I'm not saying right or wrong, is that as a man, you have to protect your family, and then you can love your family. Because if I'm sitting with my family in a cardboard box outside of the street, I'm not loving myself, which means I can't love them. I mean, part of being a person that takes care of their family is making sure that you can provide for them. But it's just funny that it's like, this person had to change that. Family man doesn't just mean just being with your family. Part of being a family man is taking care of your family. Right. Because this guy was literally getting into a situation, that literally he was probably 2 months, if he had continued to do what he's doing, that him and his family would have probably lost their house.
Wow.
And it's just, you have to make sure that your priorities are straight. Part of being a parent is making sure that your family, your kids, they're taken care of. And it was funny that once he understood that, like, it's okay to work Saturday and Sunday, it's okay to work past 5 o'clock, because I've never met any family that if you have a little bit more money and family that doesn't have to stress about money, you don't have a better family life. I mean, let me ask you something. When money's tight, how does that feel?
It feels like crap.
Yeah. I mean, people don't realize the stress of money is much harder than the stress of putting in the work to actually have money. And I think that's so important for some people out there to understand, is like, part of being a family man, being a family woman, is just making sure that if you're going to put the work in real estate, make sure that you put it in so that your family can thrive, not survive,
Yeah, because I think the stress of not having money and not being able to provide for your family speaks to, or strikes right to, who you are as a person. Like, it strikes your core, right? Talk about that ego. It causes you to question who you are as a person. And while some of those questions can be good, depending on the state of mind that you're in, more often than not, it leads you down a downward spiral. So 100%.
Real estate is probably the hardest business to be in when you don't have money.
Yeah.
Because every no stings a little bit worse. Every deal that falls out, it guts you. It's just, it's not a fun business to be when you're chasing from behind, trying to make money when you actually need money. Because it's just, real estate is such an emotional sport that everything just hurts a little different, a little, it's a very hard business to be in.
Yeah.
So tell me, going forward to 2025, have you thought a little bit more about what your goals would be? What you're trying to accomplish next year? What does that look like for you in 2025 in terms of goals, of transactions, income? What does that look like for Robert Watkins?
Yeah. So, I set an intention going into this fourth quarter to get to 8 listings a month and staying there. Right. I hit 8 sporadically throughout the years, but being consistently at 8 a month. And so so far we're on track for that. I believe today we'll take our 15th listing in the last 47 days. And so that keeps me on track for the 8 a month. God willing, I'll end this month with around 11 listings. And then pick it back up for November, right? And December. And then going into next year, I want to maintain that at least 8 minimum per month. so that we can get to 100 closed deals for 2025.
I mean, your market, what would that be in terms of income?
Here in California, that would put me right around maybe 1.2.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would 1 do for you and your family?
Oh man, I mean, it would definitely upgrade a few things in our life. Um, um, I've got to get my backyard done. We moved into a new home 3 years ago, but I want to get our backyard done. There's just some other things I want to do for the family. There's also some other things I want to do business wise within the realm of real estate, and that would allow me to do it. So, I'm completely and totally and utterly focused on getting there so I can get to the next place.
Sure. So if someone asked you to give advice to yourself day one, what are 2 pieces of advice that you would go back and give Robert Watkins day one? You know now.
Shit. Sorry. 2 pieces of advice I would give: surrender. You don't know it all. Like, give up your need to be right. Like, fail faster. Just throw yourself out there, be vulnerable as quickly as you possibly can. And if you don't attach your ego to it, you will gain a university's worth of information and education in a short period of time. So I would say that, and then get around the right people. Get around the right people as quickly as possible, because this business has a crap ton of the wrong people. And you can spend a career around the wrong people and think you're doing well. But it's compared to what, right? So get around the right people as quickly as you possibly can.
Yeah. I think, again, that word surrender is probably, it may be the single most important thing to being a successful real estate agent, is the word surrender. Being able to surrender who you are, what you think you're supposed to do, and then surrendering to the right person, the right system, and then putting those things in place every single day. Because again, I know that 2006, when I surrendered, I mean, it changed my life. Because, when you start to realize what you're actually capable of doing, it opens up a completely different world of what's possible. And I know for me, coming up, watching so many other people do what I wanted, it's like, if you know that someone else did it, you know that it's possible for you, because, there's nothing that we can't do that someone else hasn't done.
Yeah.
The question is, are we willing to put the work in that person does? Everybody wants to be a beast until they start to really realize what a beast actually was. You know what I mean? It's funny to see people not understand that real estate at the highest level, it's not working 3 or 4 hours in the morning. It's putting in a morning shift, admin, and then doing the second shift in the afternoon. So how hard was that for you to learn how to work the second half of real estate? Because that was one of the things when I started coaching you that we really tried to focus on, was getting more out of your afternoon.
Yeah. And so it was difficult because of, I think, certain habits developed over this, again, last 4 or 5 years, that everything was easy, right? I developed a habit once in the past, and it helped, but like most, gotten away from it. And so it was so refreshing to get back to that. But it was difficult. It was refreshing, but it was difficult, because I wanted to go home at 2 or 3 or 4, and getting back to making 100 contacts in a day, staying till 7 or 8 o'clock at night to put in the work. Like, that's a different mindset, and it requires that you pull on that dog in you, right? Like, to really, really show up, and tap into a different version of yourself to do that.
So what motivates you at this stage of life?
Winning. Like, I want to win at this game of life on my terms, based on the rules that I set. Like, I want to win. So yeah, being the best version of myself, whatever that looks like in every aspect of my life. I just want to be the best version of Robert, so that when I leave this world, when I depart from this life, and hopefully go on to the next, I will have no regrets.
So someone asked you, what are probably 2 things that you've taken away from coaching with me? What do you think it would be?
Digging in and pulling that dog out, especially when you need it. Pulling that dog out. I'd say, man, when I think of you, that's what I think of. Showing up as beast mode version of myself. So that, And man, skill set, the higher degree of skill set that you have, honestly, the easier the rest of this becomes. Your dedication to becoming as highly skilled as you possibly can does make all of the rest of this far easier.
Absolutely. People don't realize if you know what to say, it makes it like 100 times easier to go out and do. I mean, that's the reason that most people, they don't go out and prospect with tenacity, is that they don't know how to. It's not that they don't want to, is that they literally don't know how to handle it. That's probably one of the biggest things that I see with agents that I work with, is their inability to be able to really handle objections where they're not pushing it down the client's throat. They're asking questions to be able to influence people. But people don't realize influencing someone has so much more power than trying to just sell somebody.
100%.
Well, Robert, it was great having you. We look forward to having you back on future episodes. If anybody wanted to ask you any questions, get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Absolutely. You can call me directly. Phone number is 909-205-5848. Or email me at robert@watkinsregroup.com.
Great. Well, Robert, it was great talking to you, and we look forward to having you